Welcome to Healed to Heal, the podcast that champions radical faith, confronts unbelief, and amplifies a single truth. Jesus still heals. He always has. He never stopped. So whether you're still lying on the mat or carrying someone else to Jesus, this is for you. Hi, and welcome back. So glad you're here. If you're here at all, I'm going to go out on a wild limb and assume that you are ready for breakthrough, like you've never been ready before. I know that feeling. And sometimes it just wells up in you so much. You're so sick of dealing with the same issues. You're so sick of facing the same giants. You are just primed and ready for breakthrough. Well, today, there's a principle I'm going to share with you that will supercharge that will fast forward it, that will get you to that place so much quicker. But before we talk about that, let's just reiterate something. You've heard me talk about the power of faith, the importance of faith, that we have to have faith. Jesus did not say, all things are possible for one who hopes. He didn't say all things are possible for one who wishes, for who wants it so bad. Those don't have to be bad things. But Jesus said, all things are possible for one who believes. We have got to have faith. So if that's true, and we absolutely have to have faith, how do we get it? How do we build our faith effectively? How do we change something that we believe? Well, I've discovered something monumental, that your beliefs are not just beliefs, they're decisions. I'm going to say that again. Your beliefs are actually decisions. And as we go further into this episode, I'm going to show you examples from Scripture how this is true. And then I'm going to ask you to examine your own life, your own set of beliefs. Find out and dig out and remove and overcome and recode beliefs that are not serving you. Because underneath that belief, somewhere is a decision. It's a subtle agreement that you have made. Maybe this isn't for me. Maybe it's not God's will. Maybe this, maybe that. And I'm going to show you that those decisions are made based on what we perceive with our five senses. And what you can do when you do that is you can change the decision that you've made. Because if you can change your decision, you can change your belief. Instead of it being an uphill battle, it will go so much smoother. You will be signaling your mind in a way that supercharges you. You will be able to reach that mountain with more power, with more speed, with more intentionality. You're going to decide different so you can believe different. And that is going to start right now today. But to set the stage, I want to remind you something. You are a spirit. You are a spirit that lives in a body and who has a soul. Your soul is your mind, your will, and your emotions. And you are not your mind. You are a spirit being first and foremost. Your mind, your natural mind, is a gift given to you by God. And it is a very important gift. And you need that gift. But if that part of you is ruling you, if that part of you is running the show, you're in for some real trouble. And again, the reason it's even possible for us to be double-minded is because we have the natural mind, the mind that is working through our soul, and the mind of the spirit. The mind of your spirit is higher than, not limited by space or time. But your natural mind, lots of limitations. Think analytical mind. Think the part of you that reasons this or out based on what? Based on what you can see and touch and feel and smell. Only problem is, think about the word, what the word tells us about faith. Faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Not seen. It's the conviction of things not seen. So it doesn't do us any good to focus on the things that are seen. We need to learn to go to the unseen. Well, that does not come naturally to us. God has given us an incredible way to move beyond that. I love the story of the man from Mark 9 who brought his son to Jesus. His boy had been convulsing. He had been experiencing seizures. The disciples couldn't help him. He comes to Jesus, just desperate for a solution. And he had watched his child suffer for years. Jesus even asked him, hey, how long has this been going on? And he had to admit, I've been seeing this thing throw my child into the fire, trying to kill him. Can you imagine as a parent what that would be like? Just a living hell. But here he is standing before Jesus, and he's like, if you can help him. And Jesus looks and says, if I can. And then comes the great line, all things are possible for one who believes. So of course, what does the man say? He's not going to say, well, I don't believe. He immediately decides to say, I believe. But then he tacks on to that, help down my unbelief. I can just imagine him looking at Jesus and saying, I believe, but knowing there was a piece of him that didn't believe. So he was being fully honest. The thing that he was doing here that was so powerful that we can take with us both now and forevermore is making a decision to believe, even before you believe. And Jesus had wonderful compassion on this man and his son. He healed the boy on this spot. But this principle, saying I believe, deciding to believe, is a way that I'm going to show you is working with the way that God designed your mind to work. And it is extraordinary. It's going to get you to that place where faith is made sight so much faster than you ever imagined. It turns out that saying I believe before you fully believe is one of the keys that can unlock your ability to believe. Your decision to believe can open the door so that belief can walk right on through. And I'm going to show you exactly how that works. Because whether you know it or whether you don't know it, you are already living from decisions you have made in the past. The very first thing I want you to focus on right now is that your brain is filtering things out. There is more data coming at you every moment of every day than what you discern. Your brain has to filter some of it out. How does it do that? There's something called the reticular activating system. And so our brain ends up filtering out just 90% of the information that's coming at us. It's just the stuff that we have decided is important, the stuff we have decided that is relevant. So you can see really quickly how important it is to make the right decision about what you're going to pay attention to. One of the things you always hear talked about when you hear about the reticular activating system is like when you buy a car. You're looking for a car, all of a sudden you see them everywhere. When we got a Jeep Renegade for my daughter, a red Jeep Renegade, I started seeing them everywhere. She's not even driving that car anymore, and I still see them on the road. Why? They didn't suddenly appear. It was just that was valuable to me. That was something that I had signaled to my mind to be filtering in instead of filtering out. Well, you're going to realize that this is relevant to healing in a huge, huge way. But before we get back to the woman with the issue of blood, let me take you to John 12. This is going to blow you away, okay? Remember in John 12, there's a voice that comes from heaven, but not everybody recognizes it as a voice. It says this, therefore the people who stood by and heard it said that it had thundered, and others said, an angel has spoken to him. Okay, it was the same moment, it was the same sound, but it was perceived differently. Different interpretations. Some people thought it was thunder. Some people thought it was an angel. Some people thought it was a voice. Not everybody had a category for it. Not everybody had a belief system in place. Listen, if you've decided that it's not possible to see angels or to hear from angels, no way you're going to hear the angels. If you've decided it's not possible for God to speak through a voice from heaven, you're not going to hear it, friend. That's why the way that we train our senses to hear from God or not hear from God is going to determine to what capacity we can actually hear. Because otherwise, we can miss out on something God is doing. It's right there, but we haven't decided to be open to that. We haven't decided to believe that's even possible. It's not just that your belief changes your outcome. It's that your belief determines what you're even able to recognize, what you can even see. Because when you decide that something is possible, you're actually creating a framework for that thing. And this is why our decisions matter so much. You can train your mind to be open to that thing and to see it and open up to it. So the question isn't just what's possible. The question is, what have you decided is possible? And if the word is saying that all things are possible for one who believes, your job is to now align with that. Your job is to now come into full agreement with that and say, yes, I believe that all things are possible with God. I believe that I can receive my healing from God. I believe that what the word says is true and not letting anything else stand in the way of that. If you were to do that right now, right here in this moment, you have just signaled your reticular activating system and said, look, this is what's going down. This is what I'm going with. And I'm going to show you in the story of the woman with the issue of blood. This is what she absolutely did in my mind. So the woman with the issue of blood, Mark 5:25-34 says, now a certain woman had a flow of blood for 12 years and had suffered many things from many physicians. She had spent all that she had and was no better, but rather grew worse. Just imagine being her, right? When she heard about Jesus, she came behind him in the crowd and touched his garment.
For she said, "If only I may touch his clothes, I shall be made well." Immediately the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of the affliction. And Jesus, immediately knowing in himself that power had gone out of him, turned around in the crowd and said, "Who touched my clothes?" But his disciples said to him, "You see the multitude thronging you, and you say, 'Who touched me?'" And he looked around to see her who had done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what had happened to her. So stop and think about that for just a minute. 12 years of suffering. 12 years, she had tried everything. She had spent everything. And instead of getting better, she just got worse. And on top of that, because of her situation, she was considered unclean. She wasn't even supposed to be in public. She wasn't supposed to touch anyone, let alone a rabbi. So she had no sense of evidence, no results from her 5 senses to tell her that healing was possible. Now, she clearly could have seen Jesus do healings in the past, but considering the fact that he was talking to them and he was administering healing to them, how could she think that that was possible for her? I believe that she made a decision. She made a decision. If I just touch his clothes, I will be made well. She said it before she saw it. She said it way before she felt it. She chose a direction. She aligned with it. She decided what was going to be true, and then she moved in alignment with that decision. She built up her belief by deciding it first, and then she thought about it, saw it, acted on it. It's just like in my book where the people in the book reiterated this principle again and again. Pray believing and then act faith. The faith and then the action. But there's something awesome I want to share with you about this story. Just something awesome. And I didn't see it until I was doing research for my book, Heal to Heal, and the Power of Testimony. But just wait till you get this. Mark 6:56, it says, where he went into villages, towns, and countryside, they placed the sick in the marketplaces. And here it is. They begged him to let them touch even the edge of his cloak, and all who touched it were healed. Okay, here's what I think happened. I think that she knew she couldn't go just talk to Jesus. She was going to have to find another way. And when she finally decided, she's like, I'm going for it. If I just touch his cloak, if I just touch his cloak, I will be healed. And then when she did it and she was healed, the people saw it. And they were like, holy cow, all I have to do is touch his cloak. And so that was the thing that set the stage. And I've been talking about this already on some of my podcasts that I've been on. But I look at the woman with the issue of blood as the Roger Bannister of the ancient world. You remember his story, right? He was the man that broke the 4-minute mile. They didn't think it was possible for a human being to go that fast. They didn't think it was impossible until he did it. But then when he did it, a lot of other people did it too. In fact, a year after he did this, which was 1954, there were 12 more people that did it, or actually 13. What changed? It wasn't the potential of the human body. It was the belief. It was seeing that somebody else could do it. And then you could have the breakthrough. The barrier itself didn't go anywhere. It was the belief. One person decides it's possible, and then other people realize it's possible. And that's one of the ways that testimony can be so powerful. But as Christians, we need to realize what we see can't be the only thing. Testimony can be very powerful. But because we don't see everything going on, it has to be faith that is the most important thing. In other words, a lot of us are basing what we think is possible only on what we see. And yes, it's great when we see somebody break through. But the reason she broke through is because she decided she was going to break through. And I have every reason to believe that Roger Bannister did the same thing. He was told it wasn't possible. He decided, I'm not going to believe that. See, you and I can take this and run with it. We can run with it in everything that we're doing. Your brain does not distinguish between what is imagined and what is real. Studies have shown that when people vividly imagine something, those same parts of the brain start lighting up. They're lighting up like a Christmas tree in that same spot. So when you decide something is true, begin to imagine it as if it's already happened, rehearse it as if it's already happened. You are signaling your mind. You're telling your mind, look, this is possible. We're going to go for this. You decide first. Your mind will start generating ideas, noticing things you didn't notice before, and aligning you with what's possible with that decision. Decision is one of the ways that you direct your focus, and focus shapes your perception. What you perceive is the thing that you're going to act on, and actions produce results that reinforce that decision. It's just like Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, You're right. A decision is a belief in seed form. And maybe this is the key for some of you. Maybe the way through unbelief isn't waiting until you feel different, but deciding, Lord, I believe. Help thou my unbelief. Because here's the reality. A lot of the things that we believe are not based on God's truth. They're based on something that we have experienced. And if you've prayed and been disappointed, you can very easily come to the conclusion, well, must not be God's will, or maybe God doesn't want this person or that person will. But that is limiting the Holy One of Israel because God doesn't change. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and for today and forever. And God is not arbitrary. If there is such a thing as a prayer of faith at all, it requires our belief. And so we need to go and be willing to look at the places where we have limited God, where we have limiting beliefs that are not based on His word, but are based on something that we experienced. And then we formed some type of agreement. We decided, hey, that must be the way it is. Your decisions can help reinforce limitation.
And when you do that, you are limiting the Holy One of Israel. The word tells us it's possible to limit God. How? By limiting ourselves. Because all things are possible for one who believes. If I don't believe that, I'm going to be pretty limited. But when I decide to believe that, I'm expanding my capacity to receive. And I don't know about you, but I would much rather expand my capacity to receive. So this is the assignment. Stop today and think about your life. Think about what you believe about healing and go underneath and find places where you have decided, where you've made a decision. That's where you go. And this thing that I'm asking you to do, it's something that I did too. By the time I finally made my decision to believe, I had already been praying for healing for a long time. I had been suffering with my chronic pain for a long time, and I had been told by multiple doctors, not getting better, only getting worse. But the decision for me came when I was sitting in a doctor's office after the doctor had left, after we'd already had the conversation about, maybe stem cell replacement, but that's no guarantee. Basically just saying, look, I got nothing for you but pain management. Deal with it. And I made a decision sitting in that chair. I sat there for a long time, and at first, I was pretty down. I was pretty desperate. But in that moment, desperation turned into determination, and I decided not to believe that, not to accept that. I decided to believe something else. I made a decision to believe. And let's be clear, I didn't fully believe in that moment, or else my healing would have manifested right there and right then. But my decision to believe activated something in me. And now, like I was talking about with the particular activating system, now I'm working with my mind instead of against my mind. Now my mind is looking for reasons to line up with this. Had I not made that decision right there and right then, I don't care what these people are telling me, I'm not going to believe that. I'm going to believe God's word instead. And no, I don't see it yet, but I'm going to decide to believe. Let me tell you something, when you make a decision like that, and you stick to it, there is no way that you won't reach your healing because the only thing that is left is driving out the unbelief. If we don't do this, we are really going to be up against it. Let me give you an example. Let's say it's New Year and you are ready to get in shape, and you, like most of the rest of the world, decide you're going to go off and go to the gym. Well, if you're operating by sheer force willpower alone, you're probably not going to last very long. It'll probably be week 2 before you say, forget this. Especially if underneath somewhere there is a decision that you've made. Working out is hard. It's impossible to lose weight, especially after a certain age. It never works out. I always go back exactly to how I was before. That story that you're telling yourself, whatever it is often the very thing that's holding you back. Because, and I love this book title by Barbara Levine, your body believes every word you say. If you tell yourself it's hard, your body is hearing that. Mind and body, you can't separate them. They're connected, and God designed us that way. So we need to work with it. But if you can get underneath that and find out the thing underneath that you have decided and create a new decision, now you can override the old one. And now you're in business. So I say, ask God to help you see, what decisions have I made? What agreements have I made that are not from your word? and then decide to believe and be willing to say,
I believe that all things are possible for one who believes, and that includes me. And you can say, along with the woman with the issue of blood, I will touch his cloak and be healed. And friends, Jesus isn't walking through Jerusalem. He's in you, Christ in you, the hope of glory. So you can go within, ask God to help you touch the healing power. The same power that raised Jesus Christ from the dead is living in you. You can access that. You can touch it. But a decision to touch it, a decision to believe that you can, is the first step.
this will absolutely cause things to shift inside you, and you can start rewiring yourself to agree with that new decision. And that new belief can grow and grow and grow until it is rock solid. And then breakthrough is imminent. So, what are you waiting for? Make that decision today. I decide to believe. And you know what comes next? Not only that you're healed, but that you're healed to heal. Because once you have an experience like this and you realize that the doctors were wrong and that God was right, you'll never be the same. And I predict when that day comes, you won't be able to help but speak about what you've seen and heard. And when you turn and share that testimony with others, all you're going to do is spread healing all around the world. Hallelujah.
So until next time, remember, this is always, I hope, where you come to receive healing and then carry that healing to the world. Healed to heal.